Now, sir.
I would certainly consider that.
Are you
Send him to Gitmo. I would certainly consider that, yes.
President Trump also vowed to shut down the diversity visa lottery program that brought the alleged killer to our shores in 2010 from Uzbekistan.
We want to immediately work with Congress on the diversity lottery program, on terminating it, getting rid of it. We want a merit-based program where people come into our country based on merit.
The program has been in place for only over 20 years, first introduced in 1990 by Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer, who says he tried to shut it down in 2013. A war of words between Schumer and the president playing out, as Schumer calls him, or accuses the president of playing politics here. So we'll see probably some more of that. But currently, the U.S. Attorney Heather in New York is planning on trying the suspect in a civilian court, but left the door open to change that down the road.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about that and what will happen. Griff Jenkins live for us. Thank you, Griff. Well, among the 8 people killed, 32-year-old Darren Drake, the 32-year-old worked as a project manager in Lower Manhattan, was taking a bike ride between a meeting when he was run down. His heartbroken father now doubling down on President Trump's call for more extreme vetting.
These people, they come to the country and they hurt us. I mean, what do they expect? I mean, of course, there's a war going on between America and, ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Of course, there's a war going on. But, I just think that vetting should be a lot more difficult, to allow these people to come into the country, especially a single man. But you get these, these radicals, and, my son is the victim. He should serve the rest of his life in solitary. That's exactly the way I feel. Don't let him get communication with anybody.
Well, James Drake described Darren as the perfect son. Their last conversation was about traffic and whether Darren would have time to ride a bike the same day that he was killed. And our prayers with all of those families impacted. Well, President Trump now being praised by America First Action spokesman and senior advisor David Clark. He says that we now have a president who will take action against terror.
There's some good news here. President Donald Trump is the only elected official in the Beltway in Washington, D.C. who gets it. I heard his press conference this afternoon. It was brilliant. It was spot on. Not only has he identified the enemy and identified what the problem is, and he did it during his entire campaign. I think it's one of the big reasons he got elected, but he's also going to do something about it. I was glad to hear that he's going to suspend this crazy diversity lottery program until Congress can get their act. And Congress has been a problem too. Both parties, they refuse to tackle immigration to make this country safe. But, like I said, we got a commander-in-chief now who's going to do everything within his power to keep us safe.
Well, President Trump has called for extreme vetting and tougher border security ever since the campaign. In fact, even before that. Well, a manhunt intensifying right now for a man who walked into a crowded Walmart and just started shooting. Thornton police say that this man opened fire near the entrance of a store just north of Denver. 2 men shot and killed at the scene. A woman later dying from her injuries at a hospital. Police say that the man took off in his car, has not been seen since, and they say the attack appears to be random. Well, today, President Trump's former campaign aides accused of conspiring against the United States are set to appear in court. Paul Manafort and Richard Gates already pleading not guilty to charges stemming from conspiracy, money laundering, and failing to register as a foreign agent. The indictments do not mention President Trump at all or the alleged Russian meddling in the 2016 election. But today is the day that we will finally see President Trump's historic tax plan. Its release was initially delayed over negotiations, but our commander-in-chief says that now is the time to make history.
It's cuts and it's relief and it's also reform. And frankly, it's also simplification. So we're covering everything. There has never been anything like it.
Well, this as a group of New York House Republicans have submitted an alternative tax plan to House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Kevin Brady, I should say. New York is one of several states that will benefit least from the tax plan. And the Houston Astros are your 2017 World Series champions. Right for him. Well, entitled and self-righteous, former First Lady Michelle Obama taking aim at men and taking some swipes at President Trump, sort of. Jackie Banyas joins us now with the story that sent Twitter into a frenzy. Good morning, Jackie. What is this about?
Hi. Good morning, Heather. Good morning to everyone at home. Well, Michelle Obama offering lots of advice during the first ever Obama Foundation Summit in Chicago. Most of it, well, the young men of the world and President Trump, though, she didn't mention him by name. The former First Lady slamming men as entitled and self-righteous, but says it's not their fault. Women, Heather, are to blame.
Of course.
It's powerful to have strong men, but what does that strength mean? You know, does it mean respect? Does it mean responsibility? Does it mean compassion? Or are we protecting our men too much so they feel a little entitled and a little, a little self-righteous sometimes? But that's kind of on us too, as women and mothers.
Yep.
As we nurture men and push girls to be perfect.
The former First Lady also telling men to get, quote, some friends and talk to each other about their alleged gender-based problems. She didn't stop there, though. She also took a subtle swipe at the current occupier of her old home at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Listen.
You don't tweet every thought. Tweeting and social media, that is a powerful weapon.
It is.
That we just hand over to little kids. A 10-year-old, here you go. Tell it like it is. And it's like, no, you don't.
Yep.
You need to think and spell it right and have good grammar.
Well, she was quick to point out, though, that she wasn't talking about anyone in particular. Remember, a few weeks ago, the former First Lady made headlines for slamming the GOP as all men and all white. So she allegedly wasn't talking about the president, Heather.
No, of course not.
No.
Although it may have seemed that way.
Just 10-year-old kids.
All right. Thank you so much, Jackie. We, of course, want to keep talking about this, though. What do you think? Are men too entitled, and are women to blame? Join the conversation with Jackie on Facebook Live, Twitter, and Instagram, and we'll share some of your comments later in the show. Well, the time now is about 13 minutes after the top of the hour, and from lone wolf to known wolf, the accused New York City terrorist was on the radar. So how did he slip through the cracks?
It's about the Obama administration. You're going into battle trying to understand the enemy, and you're not being allowed to use the words that they use to describe themselves. This is the insanity of the last 8 years.
Our next guest is a former CIA analyst who says that the PC police are keeping the real police from doing their jobs. Stay with us. Welcome back. A Fox News alert for you. Some new reports showing that the New York City terror suspect has been on the radar since at least 2015. So how was he able to carry out the deadliest terror attack that the city has seen since 9/11? Now, former CIA analyst Fred Fleets is here to weigh in on the red flags that could have been missed. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good to be here. Good morning.
We mentioned the possibility of this yesterday, unconfirmed, that he was on the radar here, and now we know that to be true. Let's take a look specifically at, some of the background first of Sayfullo Saipov. He's not a U.S. citizen. He was born in Uzbekistan, as we said yesterday. He came to the U.S. through this diversity visa program. He passed an Uber driver background check, and he drove with them for 6 months. What did we miss here, Fred?
Well, let's start off with noting that we're hearing the same thing we hear every time there's a terrorist attack in the U.S. The guy's a lone wolf, there's no foreign ties, and we have New York officials saying he was recently radicalized. New York officials can't know that. He was interviewed as part of a counterterrorism investigation 2 years ago. His mosque was under surveillance by the New York City Police Department. I think those are red flags, and it raises for me the question, was this an intelligence failure? But there's a bigger question here. Did political correctness prevent U.S. officials from connecting these dots? And is this the reason this guy slipped through the cracks?
And that's a valid question, especially when we take a look at some of the facts that you just mentioned, specifically the mosque themselves that were then taken off this investigation. Let's take a look at that. In 2006, as we just mentioned, Fred said Saipov's mosque believed to be the subject of this federal investigation. And then in 2010, Sayfullo Saipov enters the U.S. And then in 2014, New York City drops the unit that surveils mosque. And then in 2015, he was identified as a point of contact for the 2 men in a terror database. And then at that time, he was interviewed as well. And then in 2017, Saipov carried out, of course, the deadliest New York City attack since 9/11. So do you think part of the issue were the surveillance of these mosques that was lifted?
I think there's a real possibility of that. This mosque was being surveilled by the New York City police, even though it was in Paterson, New Jersey. There was a special arrangement with a prior New Jersey governor to permit that. But Bill de Blasio shut down this surveillance program because he thought that it wasn't sensitive to Muslims in the region. And look, I understand that concern, but if a mosque or a church is believed to be a headquarters or a place where terrorists are meeting, I think the U.S. government has to be surveilling it. De Blasio shut this program down. We know this is the mosque that this guy was worshiping at, and there was some terrorist link. This is something I think we need to look into.
Oh, and I'm absolutely sure that people will as a result of this. Fred Fleets joining us live this morning with some insight. Fred, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Good to be here.
Well, the time now is about 20 minutes after the top of the hour, and Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas sounding off on national anthem protest in this rare interview that we only see on Fox News.
Some people have decided that the Constitution isn't worth defending, that history isn't worth defending.
Why he says he's not giving up the fight. And straight white males need not apply at the DNC. Well, now Twitter wants to know why the so-called Party of Diversity isn't an equal opportunity employer. And Carly Shimkus has your responses on that. Well, welcome back. Ever wonder why you didn't see tweets about the DNC email leaks? Think about that. And that was in the months leading up to the 2016 election. Well, it turns out that Twitter purposely hid them. Carly Shimkus from Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115 is here with reaction to the social media censorship. Good morning.
Good morning. This is a big one. Amid Twitter's ongoing investigation, or amid the ongoing investigation into Russia's efforts to influence our election, Twitter, Facebook, and Google executives have been testifying on Capitol Hill. And amid that testimony, we now know that Twitter worked to stop the spread of certain hashtags that would negatively impact Hillary Clinton. Here is a direct quote from a Twitter executive who says, "Our systems detected and hid just under half, 48% of tweets relating to variants of another notable hashtag, hashtag DNC leak, which concerns the disclosure of leaked emails from the Democratic National Committee. On top of that, approximately 25% of tweets, including the hashtag Podesta emails, were also hidden from searches as well." And why these topics directly relate to Russia's hacking of the DNC, some people are accusing Twitter of censoring its users, like Hamish, who says Twitter colluded with the Clintons too. Charlie tweeted, "Freedom of speech being silenced. If it doesn't fit the status quo, it's been obvious." And another Twitter user says Twitter, Google, and Facebook censoring info damaging to their preferred party. This is election interference and exactly what they accused President Trump of doing. Now, while all that is going on, Twitter is also being accused of not doing enough to stop the spread of Russia's interference. So, tough day to be a tech giant.
Yeah. And speaking of tech and the DNC saying that white men shouldn't apply for tech jobs. Is that true?
That's right. Yeah, the DNC is apparently looking for new employees for its tech department, but at least one manager does not want white men to apply. Here is an email from Madeline Leader, who is the data service manager over at the DNC. She says, "What's more important is that we are focused on hiring and maintaining a staff of diverse voices and life experiences, something that is desperately needed. I personally would prefer that you not forward to cisgender white straight males, since they're already in the majority." You know, social media is talking about this one. One Twitter user says, "Wow, what a Democrats signing in response. Radio silence, I'm sure." And Eric says, "Isn't it illegal to discriminate based on gender, race, and sexual orientation? They hit the trifecta." So, yikes.
I mean, incredibly remarkable that they would say something like that in light of Imran Awan and his Pakistani family. He himself also, under investigation, banned from the House for theft, cyber cybersecurity issues.
Yeah.
Hire him, but don't hire white men.
To be fair, the DNC said that this was not, signed off by them. This was kind of a woman who did this on her own, so they're not taking credit for this email. But in an effort to be so inclusive, looks like they're being exclusive once again.
All right, Carly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
Appreciate
a lot.
it.
Yes.
Well, the time now is about 27 minutes after the top of the hour. And inside the terror organization behind the September 11th attacks, what the CIA is revealing in just released journals and movies from the bin Laden family. This is really interesting. And former First Lady Michelle Obama says that men are entitled and self-righteous because women protect them too much. And our viewers there are definitely fired up over this one. Jackie is standing by. Hi, Jackie. What are people saying?
Hi, good morning, Heather. Yeah, people are saying that Michelle Obama got this one wrong. So log on to my Facebook. Let us know. We're doing our Facebook Live right now. We want to hear from you. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Suddenly the wrongs, they start to feel so right.
Wanted to kill as many people as possible. The New York terror suspect plotted for weeks, and his rampage was far from over when he was shot by a hero police officer. He actually intended to do a lot more. Julie Banderas is live at the scene in Lower Manhattan with some new information for us. Good morning, Julie.
Yeah, Heather, you know, it took just 24 hours for investigators, FBI, the NYPD counterterrorism unit here in New York City, among the very best, to gather enough evidence, overwhelming evidence, to support the federal and murder charges brought up against this suspect. That suspect whose name I will not be uttering today, not to give him or his family any notoriety for his cowardly suspected act of terrorism. But he did appear in court last night, shackled in a wheelchair, showing no remorse as he heard the charges against him. One count of providing material to terrorists and one count of violence and destruction of a motor vehicle causing death. The latter charge carries the death penalty. We have also learned chilling new details of how he plotted this attack for weeks after being radicalized online, making dry runs to the city.
A search of cell phones found in a bag that he was carrying, a search conducted pursuant to court-authorized wiretaps, revealed thousands of ISIS-related images and about 90 videos depicting, among other things, ISIS fighters killing prisoners by running over them with a tank, beheading them, and shooting them in the face.
Authorities also say he wanted to put ISIS flags on his truck during the attack and wanted ISIS flags inside his hotel room, in his hospital room, rather. And if that's not alarming enough, we've also learned he was actually interviewed by the FBI about terror ties in 2015. We also have this new amateur video. It was shot from an apartment above the scene where the suspect was captured. And in it, you can see the 29-year-old suspect aimlessly running around the streets after he crashed his rental Home Depot truck before being confronted by an ununiformed NYPD police officer who then shot him in the leg and subdued him. And at this point, authorities are saying he is a lone wolf and the only suspect in this case. Back to you.
Now, can you imagine being in that traffic while he just ran around aimlessly with what appeared to be real handguns there?
Yeah.
That was some scary stuff.
Two guns, one of them a rubber bullet gun, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Julie Banderas live for us. Thank you, Julie. Well, New York's Democratic leaders are condemning Tuesday's attack as terror, but they're still refusing to call the attacker a radical Islamic extremist. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, former deputy assistant to the president, says that it's an Obama-era tactic that's only feeding into the enemy's agenda.
It's not just about de Blasio, it's not just about Cuomo, it's about the Obama administration. In 2011, under pressure from CAIR, the so-called Muslim civil rights organization that does not represent Muslims in America, the White House bowed to their pressure and told the FBI, this is in an unclassified memo from the White House, they wrote to the then Attorney General Eric Holder and to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the most senior military officer in the Pentagon, and said, from this day forward, there are certain words and phrases that you are not allowed to use, and that included jihad. That included discussion of Islam. So you're going into battle trying to understand the enemy, and you're not being allowed to use the words that they use to describe themselves. This is the insanity of the last 8 years.
Well, President Trump, meantime, says that he would consider sending Saipov to Guantanamo Bay as opposed to trying him in U.S. federal court. So that is being debated. We are getting our first look at thousands of newly released documents seized from Osama bin Laden's Pakistan compound. Among them, some new information on his links to Iran and Iraq, including never-before-seen video of his adult son. Amy Kellogg joins us now live from Rome with more. Good morning, Amy.
Hi, Heather. Well, given that Iran is a revolutionary Shiite country and al-Qaeda is the extreme side of the Sunni spectrum, this relationship was extremely complex and essentially boils down to my enemy's enemy is my friend. Now, 500,000 new documents just released found at bin Laden's Abbottabad compound that Navy SEALs raided in 2011 shed light on many aspects of the terror organization. Contrary to some reports, Osama bin Laden was, according to these documents, very much in control of the organization at the time of his death. These documents seem to confirm the story long debated that Iran sheltered some al-Qaeda families after the U.S. invaded Afghanistan. Most fascinating, while there were serious fallings out, the two arch ideological enemies, Iran and al-Qaeda, had strategic collaboration after 9/11, and the documents reveal that Iran offered al-Qaeda assistance in the form of, quote, money, arms, and training in Hezbollah camps in Lebanon in exchange for striking American interests in the Gulf. In the cache, wedding video of bin Laden's son, Hamza. This is the first time we've seen Hamza as an adult. He is believed to be the successor leader of the organization. And finally, surreally mixed into this trove, some bin Laden family entertainment preferences, America's Funniest Home Videos, Tom and Jerry, and some pornography, Heather.
All right, Amy Kellogg, live for us. Much more to come on this story. Thank you. Well, more defense tactics and excuses coming from Democrats. Hillary Clinton claims that most serious people, that's a quote from her, she says they know the difference between Democratic-funded opposition research like the Russia dossier and alleged Trump campaign collusion. Meanwhile, DNC Chair Tom Perez denying the Democrats' leading role in funding that dossier, despite other members of his own party admitting it.
When their work was done, it was given to, then it was continued by the Democrats. We have not hidden the fact that we had opposition research that was done.
Well, this comes just days after Perez claimed the Electoral College was not in the Constitution. Well, the sanctuary state showdown between the Trump administration and California intensifying, and the Department of Justice issuing a stern threat: continue breaking the law, then prepare to lose millions in federal funds. And the warning comes after Democratic Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill that essentially puts a wall between California cops and ICE agents. Well, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas denouncing the national anthem protest by NFL players. In a rare exclusive interview, our Laura Ingram talked to him, and he says that the Constitution is worth fighting for.
Some people have decided that the Constitution isn't worth defending, that history isn't worth defending, that the culture and the principles aren't worth defending. Then, you know, certainly if you're in my position, they have to be worth defending. That's what keeps you going.
Well, Justice Thomas has served on the bench since 1991 as a George H.W. Bush nominee. And I believe that Laura served as his clerk at one point in time. Well, the time is now about 20 minutes until the top of the hour, and open border backlash. President Trump declaring enough is enough.
Terrorists are constantly seeking to strike our nation. We're so politically correct that we're afraid to do anything. We have to get tough, we have to get smart, we have to do what's right to protect our citizens.
So where was the accused New York City terrorist radicalized? And what did his wife know? That's a good question. Why our next guest says that somebody had to know something. Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. Some brand new questions being raised this morning about the accused New York City terrorist and his trips back to Uzbekistan. When exactly was he radicalized, and what did his wife know? Former Las Vegas Metro Police Lieutenant Randy Sutton joins us now to weigh in. Thank you very much for joining us, Randy, this morning. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Two big questions that we want to delve into. But first of all, let's talk about the issue with asylum seekers and how that relates to this.
Well, you know, this is something that we have to have a major discussion about. The president is trying to do his very, very best to protect the American people, as is his responsibility. And yet he seems to be being met with all kinds of distractions and people attempting to move his program instead of protecting the American people. They're trying to cast shadows upon it.
And you were saying that specifically we need some sort of law that prevents asylum seekers from returning home.
Well, we need to take a look at this. I mean, we can't go around blindly just accepting things as they have gone on. We are now on the front lines of this war. This war is now in America, as has been shown so graphically in the last few days. We simply cannot stand by and not do anything. We have to look at every single aspect and what can we do to prevent these things.
Now, we know that this suspect, he was married with children, and we've heard that, you know, that's been the case with the Boston bomber's wife, specifically Tamerlan Tsarnaev, the Orlando shooter's wife as well. What do we know about his wife, and do you think she was aware that this was going to happen?
You know, this is really interesting. What goes on in the homes of these people who've been radicalized or radicalized themselves? This doesn't happen in a vacuum. You know, we have to understand that the family dynamics that are taking place. But you know, we're talking about women who are generally in this world subservient to men. So
in the Muslim world, you mean?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And also, you know, it would take a great amount of courage for people in the family structure to come forward. And this is why we need to join forces with the Muslim community and educate them, and not only educate them, but it's time to take a real stance here. You got to remember that the New York City Police Department has an incredible intelligence gathering capacity, and they were doing a lot of proactive work in the mosques themselves. Until, because of political correctness, they have been taken away from that. This is something that we simply cannot stand by and say, okay, well, for political correctness, we're not going to investigate these things. We're not going to have surveillance. We must.
Yeah, surveillance of mosque, extreme vetting, a lot of questions being raised today as a result of this in reference to, you know, when does political correctness have to step aside in order to protect Americans here at home? Randy Sutton, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, the time now is about 15 minutes until the top of the hour, and students of Notre Dame suing after the school drops free birth control. Do they have a case? Attorney Lisa Garber, I should say, is here live to break down both sides of the constitutional controversy. And flying for Thanksgiving, you might want to head to the airport now. The brand new travel report that you will not be thankful for. An early warning if you're traveling for Thanksgiving. Tracy Crosco from our sister network, Fox Business, here to explain, you know, not really early because Thanksgiving actually isn't that far away.
Yeah, and you know, the Thanksgiving travel season is considered November 17th to the 28th. So U.S. Airlines, they're expecting 29 million people to travel during that 12-day period. That's up 3% from last year, and they're saying this is all because of low fares and extra seats available. Now, they're adding some 86,000 seats during this travel period, and the busiest travel days, of course, going to be that Sunday, November 26th, Wednesday the 22nd, and Friday, November 17th. The lightest day is actually the day of Thanksgiving, November 23rd. Interesting.
So they're adding 86,000 seats a day. Why can't they do that all the time and avoid some of the backups?
Not a day, through that whole period. So they're breaking it down a little bit.
All right.
But,
well, even still.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Now, Starbucks, we had kind of a tease what possibly may be the new cups, but now that's confirmed.
Yes. So here it is. This is the actual Starbucks holiday cup just released. And as you can see, see, it's not red like the usual cup, but it's white. It's got some holiday designs, and it was intentionally left kind of blank so that you could draw and color in your own designs. And we have one right here. We've got a fox drawn in. So, you know, these cups are usually a source of controversy, but they've only been out a day, so we'll give it some time.
So if you want some red, you can doodle in red on it.
Exactly. If you want a red cup, make it your own.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Appreciate it. Well, the University of Notre Dame, have you heard about this? Taking advantage of President Trump's new policy, ending free birth control coverage. As a result, students are now suing the Trump administration. So do they have a case? Joining me now to weigh in is attorney Lisa Garber. Thank you so much for joining us again this morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
So do the students have a case here?
The students, if you look at this legally, it's certainly a very complex issue. It has many, many layers, and this debate has been going on for about 5 years now in the Supreme Court and otherwise. The students, it looks like, have a tough case for sure. Unfortunately, it looks like Notre Dame, first of all, you see Notre Dame, it has this background as a Catholic university and very obviously portrays itself as such, and it has gone against the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, in terms of being mandated to supply birth control at no cost. It's defied that at every turn. It's filed lawsuits, it's filed temporary emergency injunctions, and the students willingly went to this school with this Catholic tie, so it's hard to see that perspective. And certainly with President Trump's new rule, which came out on October 6th, he's trying to defend religious freedoms. Where it gets sticky is that he says religious freedom or moral issues, and that's the point that might be tricky to keep.
So that could be a possible loophole in this?
It could be a possible loophole, but I think we're going to see more definition of what that term actually means.
Okay. In terms, you said that this has been something that's been at the forefront for about 5 years now. How have previous cases stood up?
Previous cases, well, Notre Dame has really led the charge against mandating birth control, and the Supreme Court has upheld that they don't need to be part of this, and they don't need to supply it if it goes against their religious beliefs. And look, the Constitution doesn't mandate birth control. It actually goes for religious freedom in the United States. That's something that's gone on for a long, long time. And now you look at this birth control mandate, if it goes against the Catholic Church, if it goes against these institutions that are affiliated, that's where it's a problem, and that's why Trump is defending this.
So when it comes to defining the moral issue, who would be responsible for that? Who would determine?
We're probably going to be seeing the courts determine what that means and really illustrate what that means. It could take some time, of course. The other problem is that birth control and Notre Dame's health plan is saying we're not going to provide insurance coverage for that if it's just for pregnancy prevention. But if there's a legitimate medical need for it, and there are many, many legitimate medical needs for birth control for women, then we will help support that. And I think that's also another way to go, if it's contraceptive care versus a legitimate medical need.
A lot of different caveats to look at with the argument. All right, thank you so much, Lisa Garber, joining us. Appreciate it this morning. Well, the time now is about 6 minutes until the top of the hour, and former First Lady Michelle Obama setting social media on fire yet again with this comment.
Or are we protecting our men too much so they feel a little entitled and a little, a little self-righteous sometimes?
And Jackie is up next, sharing your comments on this one, so stay with us. Your brew on this, and former First Lady Michelle Obama taking aim at men, slamming them as entitled and self-righteous. But she says it's not their fault. Instead, she blames women for nurturing them too much. So we asked you, are men too entitled, and are women to blame for it? Jackie Ibanez joins us now with some of what you're saying online. So some good reaction.
Yeah, we got a little mixed bag of everything. First, let's start with Liz on Facebook. She said her and Hillary need to go into the woods and just be quiet. Ronald on Twitter had this to say. He said, maybe in the past, it also depends on culture, but now roles are reversed. A lot of times it's 50-50. Christian on Facebook, I don't care for Michelle, but I actually agree with her on this one. A great example is also why I could not vote for Hillary.
Good point.
Jean on Facebook, yes, sometimes. Short and sweet. And then Amy says, I refuse to take care of an adult man. I am not his mother, but I do believe in working together as a team. I think we can all agree on that. We need
spoken like someone who has some other children to deal with, some real children.
Yes.
Okay. Jackie, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Heather.
We appreciate everyone sharing your comments with us. Fox and Friends First, for me, wraps up right now, but it continues for another hour, so stay with us. See you later. Bye.